Breaking news. Zelenskyy challenges Putin. Enter Kyiv at your risk. That is the headline just screaming across the wires today, Friday, January 30, 2026. Before we jump into all that, a quick word for you listening. Subscribe to Defense Reports, your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. I'm Alex. Join me with Urya in the latest update by Defense Report for a sharp, no-nonsense breakdowns of the latest in global defense news, military technology, and strategic developments. And today we're going to cover, well, it's a massive deep dive. We're looking at the high-stakes diplomatic poker game in Abu Dhabi, the terrifying evolution of drone warfare on the E50 highway, and a huge internal power shakeup inside Kyiv.
It is. It's a really chaotic landscape out there right now. A lot of moving parts. It feels like we're trying to watch 3 different movies at once. You've got a spy thriller, a gritty war documentary, and this high-stakes political drama all playing out.
We really do. And we're going to try and get to the bottom of the Oreshnik mystery. Why on earth Russia fired a nuclear-capable missile at Lviv with absolutely no warhead inside it? Was it a multi-million-dollar dud or something else?
Oh, it's definitely something else. It's a message, not a malfunction.
We're also going to look at how Russian drones are hunting 50 kilometers behind the lines using Western tech. And yeah, we're talking about Starlink. And we have to parse these rumors swirling around a secret one-week truce that Donald Trump claims he brokered with Putin.
It's a classic case of the fog of war getting thicker just as the diplomatic lights are trying, to turn on.
Exactly. So let's unpack this dare first, because this isn't just a soundbite, is it? It feels like a real gauntlet being thrown down.
Right.
President Zelenskyy did an interview with ABC News, and he essentially invited Vladimir Putin to Kyiv. But the phrasing was, well, spicy.
If he dare.
Right. If he dare. It sounds almost medieval, like a king challenging another king to single combat.
It does, but it's such a fascinating psychological power play for the modern era. You have to look at the contrast here, the leadership styles. On one hand, you have Putin, who is more and more sequestered. He's in the Kremlin. He's at his residence in Valdai, just surrounded by layers of air defense, food tasters, security.
He's the bunker leader.
Precisely, the bunker leader. And on the other side, you've got Zelenskyy sitting in Kyiv, a city that is under active bombardment, by the way. He's hosting international delegations, meeting leaders in a target zone. So by issuing this challenge, Zelenskyy is just shining a spotlight on Russia's moral isolation and Putin's physical isolation. It's a way of saying, I'm here facing the reality of your war. Kill you.
It's a bold move, calling out a dictator's courage like that, especially with the backdrop of what's happening in the UAE.
Yeah.
We have these trilateral talks in Abu Dhabi, January 23rd and 24th. This is the heavy lifting that usually happens, in the shadows.
And it was very shadowy at the silent summit.
Who was actually in the room for this?
Yeah.
Because usually we get a photo op, but this was kept really tight.
It's a high-level U.S. delegation. You have Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner there for the Trump administration, and they're sitting down with Russian counterparts and, of course, Ukrainian officials. They're trying to hammer out what is now being called the 20-point deal.
Okay, wait. I remember hearing about a 28-point plan just a few months ago. So we've lost 8 points. Did they just give up on them?
Not given up necessarily, but condensed. The plan's been refined. And here's where it gets really interesting and really tense. Back in late December, Zelenskyy and Trump reportedly discussed a deal that was 90% ready.
90% sounds great. If I bake a cake 90%, I'm pretty much eating cake.
Yeah, but in geopolitics, that last 10% isn't the frosting. It's the foundation of the whole thing. And that last 10% is territory. Exactly. This is the core sticking point that just hasn't changed. Russia is demanding formal recognition of the annexed regions. Donbas, Crimea, they want it on a map. And Ukraine, quite rightly, is refusing to reward aggression by signing away its own sovereign territory. If they do that, they validate the entire invasion.
And there's this weird phrase I've seen in the reports. The Anchorage formula. It sounds like a math equation or something from a Cold War thriller. What is that?
This is a brilliant, if, let's say, devious piece of Russian narrative engineering. The Kremlin is referencing that U.S.-Russia summit in Alaska back in August of 2025. They're claiming that the U.S. already agreed to territorial concessions during that meeting.
Did they? I mean, that would be a massive betrayal if it's true.
Well, the U.S. and Ukraine both dispute that vigorously, but by calling it the Anchorage formula, Moscow is trying to frame it like it's a done deal. They're essentially gaslighting the negotiations, saying, hey, you already agreed to this in Alaska, why are you backing out now?
That is such a classic negotiation tactic.
Yeah.
Make the other side feel like they're the ones breaking a promise. We had a deal, even if you never did.
Exactly. It puts the U.S. on the defensive. But while Russia is playing these games with the past, The West is trying to secure the future. We're hearing about these security guarantees that sound surprisingly robust.
They're being called the platinum standard. I like the sound of that. Better than gold. So, since Ukraine won't be joining NATO tomorrow, we know that's a red line for Russia, the U.S. and Europe are putting together this multilateral framework.
Framework is such a dry word, but what's in it is very concrete. Imagine 3 layers of defense. Layer 1 is Ukrainian forces armed to the teeth as the first line.
Which they have more than proven they can handle.
Absolutely. Layer 2, European-led troops actually on the ground in Ukraine.
Boots on the ground. You mean actual soldiers from France, Germany, Poland?
Yes. Specifically as a deterrent force after a ceasefire. They would be the tripwire. And then layer 3 is a U.S. backstop. The reports are saying this guarantee would actually mirror NATO's Article 5.
Meaning, if Russia attacks again, the response is automatic.
That's huge. It's basically NATO membership without the membership card. It gives them the security umbrella without that immediate political hurdle of ratification.
And this was formalized, or at least the intent was, at that Coalition of the Willing meeting in Paris on January 6th. You had 35 countries there committing to these binding guarantees once a ceasefire is in place.
And of course, Moscow loves this.
Oh, I bet.
They hate it. They called it dangerous and explicitly said any European troops deployed would be considered legitimate targets.
Which, frankly, just proves why those guarantees are so necessary. If Russia wasn't planning on attacking again, why would they care about peacekeepers?
Precisely. And we have to be clear here. We support Ukraine in this deep dive because the facts support the need for defense. The reality is, Russia has proven time and again that a piece of paper signed in a conference room doesn't stop tanks. Without a physical deterrent, without that platinum standard, any truce is just a pause for Russia to rearm and reload.
Speaking of reloading, let's talk about the actual battlefield. Because if you listen to Russian state media, you'd think they're marching to victory. But the numbers, they tell a very different story.
It's the difference between the grind and the signal. Russia claims they have the initiative. But if you actually look at the data, between late December 2025 and now, they've only gained about 106 square miles.
That doesn't sound like a sweeping blitzkrieg. 106 square miles is, what, smaller than some large airports?
It's tiny in the context of a country the size of Ukraine, is agonizingly slow. We are talking about an advance rate of 15 to 70 meters per day. You could literally crawl faster than the Russian army is advancing.
And the cost for that crawl?
Staggering. The estimates are now putting total Russian casualties since the start of the war at 1.2 million. They're just throwing bodies at a wall to move the line of war by inches. It is World War I attrition in the 21st century.
But while the ground war is this slow, bloody mess, the missile war is getting weird. Let's talk about Lviv, January 8th and 9th. The Oreshnik strike.
This was a pivotal moment. The Oreshnik is a hypersonic, intermediate-range ballistic missile. It's nuclear capable. Russia fires one at Lviv, way out in the west, right near the Polish border.
But it didn't explode.
It hit, but it was carrying inert dummy warheads, basically blocks of concrete or metal.
So why fire a hypersonic missile deck that costs millions with no explosive?
Because it wasn't a kinetic attack to destroy a factory, it was a psychological attack to destroy resolve. It hit a state enterprise workshop, and it did some damage just from the sheer speed and mass of the object hitting the building at Mach 10. That's kinetic energy. But the lack of a warhead was the message.
And what's the message?
It was pure saber rattling. It was directed right at the West during these security guarantee talks. It's Putin saying, I can hit you, I can reach Lviv, I can get through your air defenses, and next time I can put a nuke in there.
So it's a threat. I'm choosing not to kill you right now, but I could.
Exactly. It's a reminder of the escalation ladder.
Okay, let's pivot to the tech war, because this part is keeping me up at night. The Molniya drones. We're seeing reports of strikes on the E50 highway.
This is a terrifying evolution. The E50 is a critical logistics route. Russian Molniya fixed-wing drones are now hitting vehicles on this highway 50 kilometers behind the front lines.
50 kilometers? That's well into operational depth. It's supposed to be relatively safe. You shouldn't have to worry about a drone hitting your windshield that far back.
It was safe, but these drones have been upgraded. They are now equipped with Starlink terminals.
Starlink? Like Elon Musk's internet. Oh, they weren't allowed to use that. The terms of service are pretty clear about no military use by Russia.
They are allowed. It's completely against the terms of service. But they've acquired them, probably through third-party black markets, smuggling, and they've strapped them to these drones. This gives them incredible range and, crucially, high resistance to jamming.
Can you explain that part? Why does the Starlink dish help with jamming?
A normal drone uses radio signals from a ground controller, so if you blast enough noise on that frequency, the drone just drops. But Starlink talks to a satellite directly above it. The beam is narrow, it's focused upwards. It is incredibly hard to jam that signal from the ground.
So they're using Western tech to hunt Ukrainian logistics behind the lines, effectively bypassing Ukraine's electronic warfare.
It's battlefield air interdiction on the cheap. You don't need a multi-million-dollar jet. You just need a plastic drone and a stolen satellite dish. It threatens the entire logistics chain far from the trenches.
But Ukraine isn't just sitting there taking it. I mean, they're the ones who really pioneered drone warfare in this conflict.
No, Ukraine is responding with massive scale. Their goal for 2026 is to produce 7 million drones.
7 million. That's just an insane number. That's almost a drone for every person in some small countries.
It's industrial warfare. Their strategy is to create a strike zone 100 kilometers deep into Russian lines. They want to do to Russia what Russia's doing to the E-50, but on a massive scale. And importantly, they're working directly with SpaceX to try and block those Russian Starlink terminals.
So it's a software war, too.
Yeah.
Trying to geolocate the bad dishes and just switch them off.
A cat-and-mouse game in orbit and on the ground.
Now, all of this, I mean, managing 7 million drones and a 20-point peace plan isn't a job for amateurs. And we've seen a massive shakeup in Kyiv recently.
The two-track strategy.
Right. We have Kirilo Budanov moving from Intel Chief to Chief of Staff, and Mikhailo Fedorov moving from Digital Minister to Defense Minister. These are big names moving to big chairs. What does this tell us about Zelensky's mindset?
It tells us he's preparing for a very specific future. Budanov is the sword. He's known for those audacious ops, the Crimea landings, the strikes inside Russia. He's pragmatic, hard-nosed. Putting him as chief of staff signals that the negotiations and the intelligence game are now one and the same. He won't let Ukraine get tricked at the table.
And Fedorov. Fedorov is the shield, or maybe the factory. He is the architect of the army of drones. Moving him to defense minister means Zelenskyy wants to bypass the slow drip of Western aid. He wants to build domestic weapons independence.
As a hedge.
Exactly. If the West slows down, if politics in Washington or Brussels get messy, Fedorov is there to make sure Ukraine can still fight. He's there to build a self-sustaining war machine.
It makes a lot of sense. But it hasn't been without drama, right? There have been firings, corruption investigations.
Yes, officials like Malyuk at the SBU were let go. It's a delicate balance. Zelenskyy is centralizing power for wartime efficiency. You need to make quick decisions. But he's walking this tightrope between efficiency and maintaining democratic norms. And it is causing some domestic tension. Critics worry about power concentrating in too few hands.
It just feels like everyone is tired. The leaders, the soldiers, the civilians. Zelenskyy gave that speech at Davos on January 22nd, and he actually quoted the movie Groundhog Day. It was a really poignant moment. He said he feels like he's just saying the same things to Europe year after year. Defend yourself. Stop the money flow.
And specifically stop the Shadow Fleet.
Right. The tanker Grinch was just intercepted by the French Navy.
The Grinch. You really can't make this stuff up.
It's fitting, isn't it? But the fact that hundreds of these ships are still bypassing sanctions, still moving Russian oil, is a massive frustration for Kyiv. That oil money pays for the Oreshnik missiles. It pays for the Starlink terminals on the black market.
It's the engine of the war. But amidst all this Groundhog Day feeling, there was a bombshell rumor from Donald Trump just yesterday, January 29th. He claimed Putin agreed to a one-week moratorium on energy strikes.
A one-week truce on the grid.
Yeah. Is it real? Or is this just noise?
You have to be very skeptical. I mean, Trump claims it, but the Kremlin hasn't confirmed it. In fact, Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, is out there saying long-term ceasefires are unacceptable.
And meanwhile, it is freezing in Ukraine.
A deep freeze. They have 1,200 heated safe spaces operating in Kyiv alone. These are, tents or basements with generators where people go when the power dies. The grid is battered, but it's holding. If this truce is real, it saves lives for 7 days. If it's not, it's just more noise while the missiles fly.
So what does this all mean? We have diplomatic gridlock in Abu Dhabi, a tech war escalating on the highways, and a political reshuffle in Kyiv designed to harden the country for a long, long war.
It means we are in a transition phase The war isn't ending, it's mutating. The Platinum Standard guarantees show the West is finally thinking about long-term containment, not just emergency aid. But the Molniya drones show that Russia is adapting faster than we'd like to admit.
It's a race for a peace deal that doesn't surrender the future versus a race to destroy the other side's ability to even function.
And the resilience of the Ukrainian people, now entering their 4th year of this war, is the one variable that Russia keeps underestimating. They assumed the grid would collapse. It hasn't. They assumed the government would flee. It hasn't.
Here's a thought to leave you with today. We talk about treaties and ceasefires and lines on a map. But if a peace deal gets signed on paper tomorrow, but the Molniya drones are still autonomous, still hunting, and the Shadow Fleet is still sailing, is it really peace? Or is it just a pause for Russia to reload?
That is the billion-dollar question. And looking at that Oresnik strike, looking at the intent behind that empty warhead, I think we know what Russia would do with a pause.
A sobering thought. You've been listening to Defense Report by Alex and Arya, where we analyze the latest in military strategy, global defense, and advanced weaponry. Subscribe to Defense Reports, your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. We'll catch you next time.